Maybe we'll work on music for next time. I've been thinking we need that for a long time. Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service. I need my bell to kick things off. I'm your current president, Ashley Wesley. Thank you so much for being here. And a note, which is very timely with our current technical difficulties, please remain on mute if you're not speaking. It really helps improve the sound quality for everyone, and so that we're not picking up all those great things going on in the background. Really appreciate your help with that. Natalie, could you show the flag graphic for 15 seconds of respectful silence? And again, please remain on mute and take this time to personally reflect. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Steve Moberly, who will be offering our reflection. You're muted, Steve.
Can you hear me now? You can.
All right, let me
Okay, good. My technical assistant has got me going. Thank you. This is a great week, Monday through Friday, May 15th through 19th, and I'm going to tell you about it. First of all, we're all looking forward to Thursday, tomorrow, the 17th. It's St. Patrick's. It will be St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick was born in Roman England. He became a slave. At age 16, he was brought to Ireland. He escaped, went back to England, later returned, and is credited with bringing Christianity to Ireland. We all look forward to good food, good music, the color green, and also green beer on Thursday. So Thursday's something to look forward to. But this has been a great week in other respects also. For example, yesterday, Monday, March 15th, well, it has some good things and bad things. The bad things are it was the Ides of March, which is a bad day for Julius Caesar. And it's also has been a bad day for some college basketball coaches. But the best part of yesterday was that it is National Napping Day. Now, I enjoy a good nap in the afternoon. I see many people are applauding and raising their fingers in appreciation. It's good for your health. And I did not know that there was a National Napping Day. I'm usually not ahead of the curve, usually behind it. But in any event, it's something you can all think about. And I have a suspicion that the many of you who have been working from home for a year have become appreciative of a good nap from time to time. And I won't tell your boss. Today, March 16th, is National Panda Day. This is in recognition of those cute endangered pandas. There's a new baby panda that's been born at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. I saw a picture of it on television recently, eating its bamboo shoots, doing great, and there's nothing cuter than a panda. There's a lot of pandering that goes on in parts of Washington that is unrelated to pandas. But in any event, the pandas share tomorrow with National Artichoke Day. And it's also Freedom of Information Day, which is an important day as far as I'm concerned. Moving on to Thursday, March 18th, that's Awkward Moments Day. We've all had those, and we did not know that there was a day to honor those. And also, it is Absolutely Incredible Kid Day. That's when grandparents open their wallet when someone says, "How is your family?" and shows the latest pictures of the little darlings. That is on Thursday. But the best part of this week will arrive on Friday, March 19th. It's spring, and I don't have to tell you what that means to all of us who have gotten through an Indiana winter and a pandemic. So let's hear it for spring. Thank you very much. Yeah, they want me to mute.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Okay.
They want to mute.
Oh, we have a lot to celebrate this week. So thank you for sharing that, Steve. I'd like to introduce a few guests we have with us today. Suzanne Owen has joined us. Welcome, Suzanne. And past President Phil Myers joined us to hear Brad Kimmel's presentation today. So welcome back. And now we have a quick update from our newest member, rejoined member, John Vanderzee. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to catch people up on what I've been doing since I retired from IU Health Bloomington Hospital as their direct spiritual care and chaplaincy director in 2014. I pastored a couple of churches, interim pastor in Brownstown and Martinsville, and just recently started a coaching business. It's called Along the Way Coaching, and it's an LLC. And I will post on chat how you can reach my website. So always something new. It's important for me to do something meaningful, no matter how old I am. So yeah, that's the update. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, John. And we're so glad you've joined us again. Thanks to our producers, Natalie Blaze, Michael Shermis, Sally Gaskell, and Aaron Davis for making this all run so smoothly and for being here before I arrive. I appreciate you very much. Our roundabout reporter for this week is Sarah Laughlin. We have a few birthdays. Scott Shackelford is today, March 16th, and Monica Kroner is March 20th. Happy birthday. Membership anniversaries, Sandy Keller, 4 years, Jeff Baldwin, 7 years, Shelley Yoder, 8 years, and Steve Moberly, who offered our reflection today, 14 years. Thank you so much for being a part of the Rotary family. We don't have any announcements that we're going to share here, but I have a few waiting for you in Happy Dollars, so keep your ears open. But we do have volunteer opportunity. Again, I'd just like to highlight Helping Hands. I had the opportunity to help with them last week. It was a lot of fun. It was very safe. I recommend checking it out. You can sign up on their website or through just giving them a call, and they'll provide you with some opportunities. So take advantage of it. It's a lot of fun, and it serves a lot of people that need us in this community. So Happy Dollars. First up, I would like to call Aaron Davis to share.
Hello, yes, I'm really happy. Speaking also for Lauren Snyder and Mike Baker of our club's nominating committee, we have a slate of officers for this coming year, continuing, and then for following Sally Gaskell. So we are very fortunate to have Dave Meyer continuing as secretary and Kyla Cox-Deckard continuing as treasurer. Now this is really important. It's really helpful to have this continuity and this spirit. Somebody muted me, I think. Anyway, if we have a drum roll for the president nominee who's going to follow Sally Gaskell as president-elect this July and then president in July of 2022, we have Alan Barker.
Oh boy, that's going to be an interesting ride.
Thank you,
Thank you
Alan.
all so much. Thank you. Thank you. I see I've been spotlit in front of all of you. Not something that I expected to see, but it's great. Thank you so much, Erin, and thank you for all of the mentorship from all of you. I look very much forward to taking on the helm and helping build the organization and serving through that year, very much so.
Well, it's a team and we're all behind you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, and I got $20 for Happy Dollars to Teachers Warehouse in honor of this, great milestone.
And I'll go ahead and double that with my 20.
That is such happy news. Thank you for sharing. And we just couldn't be more delighted that you're going to take on that next role, Alon. And thank you so much to Kyla and Dave for continuing in their roles. It's been fantastic to work with you, and you provide so much great insight and support for us that I don't know what we'd do without you. So thank you. We have another person I'm going to call out for Happy Dollars. Hank Heijma is going to share with us some very important news.
Thank you, Ashley. In 2016, we published Elsa Martin's book, I Just Kept Walking. And I'm happy to announce that the French edition of that, which was very long in coming, many years in coming, has finally been printed in Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And the book is called there, and we'll call it up here, Je continuais à marcher. And that is a literal translation of I Just Kept Walking. The book has been has printed by the Rotary Club. We have 500 copies. A couple of those will come to Bloomington, and I'll share it with you in print when it is really here. I will hold it up. I'm very excited about it. It is now going to be distributed to schools in Kinshasa. Incidentally, this book was printed partially funded by money that we collected from selling the English version. We asked for an additional $10 for the French book if people were willing to do that, and promised that book would be donated to children in Kinshasa. It's now printed, and in the coming weeks it will be distributed, and I'll share images with you if that happens. $20 for Happy Dollars. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hank. Any other Happy Dollars to share?
I was always excited about the I Just Kept Marching book, or Just Kept Walking book, so I'll throw in $20 too.
I'm going to throw in $20 for both Alain and the French book. And I mean, Alain speaks French, so that's it's. And also Alain was I was his sponsor. So I'm feeling good about that. And in memory of Elsa Harik. I can't. I'm in front, I've got something in front of me.
Gus and I will put in 20. We both read it and loved it.
Thank you.
Did you get mine, Ashley?
Any other happy news to share?
I add $20 as well.
Thank you, Raj.
Can you get me on?
I can hear you.
No. Did you get my $20, Ashley?
I have it down, Charlotte.
Thank you.
All right, last call for Happy Dollars.
Here we go. Hey, I'm going to send some Happy Dollars because today is the day that my husband and both of us are fully vaccinated. And I'm actually taking a day off. The kids are on spring break and they're coming out, and we're going to hug.
Yes.
So very, very happy.
That is wonderful news. Congratulations. All right, that wraps up Happy Dollars. So I'd like to introduce Jim Bright, who will introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, President Ashley. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Brad Kimmel. Executive Director of IU's award-winning radio and television services, also known as Indiana Public Media. Before joining IU last November, Brad was President and CEO of WNIN Public Media in Evansville, and he was a member of the Rotary Club of Evansville. At WNIN, Brad managed the PBS television affiliate, the NPR radio affiliate, and a digital department. Previously, Brad served as acting executive director for WVUT Public Media, owned by Vincennes University. Brad has a keen interest in classic cars. His independently produced cable program, My Classic Car, went on to succeed in commercial television. He was founder and CEO of Garage Television in Evansville, a network that catered to a garage life audience interested in cars, boats, motorcycles, woodworking, and more. Please join me in a warm welcome for Brad Kimmel.
Thanks, Jim. Great to be here today. And I want to thank Jim. Jim's been kind of the one who first welcomed me to the area. Jim, I want to appreciate that very much, that you, I think you reached out before I think the announcement was made, and I think within hours I heard from you. So you're up to speed on both Evansville and Bloomington. So congratulations on that. Yes, I am a fellow Rotarian from Evansville, and I'm hoping once I get acclimated a little bit more here in my new role here, that I can join the club here locally if I think I can give the time to the club that it deserves. I really have appreciated the time and the mission of service above self, and believe in that, and really impressed with your club so far. I've had a chance to visit a couple of times, and really impressed with the people behind this club. So looking forward to that in the future. So what I wanted to do today was, and Jim, I apologize, I never sent you a title for what I was going to do, so kept you in suspense. So really what I want to do today is talk a little bit about me personally for just a second, so you understand a little bit more about my background and my hopes and dreams. And then I want to talk about the stations for a second and Indiana Public Media. But although, quite frankly, many of you probably know as much or more about them than I do at this point, having only been in this position for less than 4 months so far. But I can tell you, I'm thrilled to be executive director of an incredible organization here. And Phil, I'm happy to see that you were able to join us today. And I think all of you know that Phil played a major role in the success of particularly a television station here, but all of Indiana Public Media in his time here. And then I'm following in the footsteps of Perry Metz, who did an outstanding job across the board, but he particularly did a great job in building the news department here, and many of you are familiar with that. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and share my screen here, or attempt to. We practice this, so we'll see what happens here. Okay, can you guys see the screen there? All right. Okay, so I want to start out with just a few thoughts on what Jim talked about with my background. I think all of us, as we get later in our careers, kind of look back at some key moments and some accomplishments. And, I've been fortunate, like a lot of you, to have done some pretty amazing things in my lifetime that I never thought I'd get to do when I was younger. And one of those, as Jim mentioned, was to combine my passion in the hobby world with television, which I went to school and studied, and came up with a program called My Classic Car. I actually started that program with, quote unquote, my life savings in an office incubator in Evansville. Was fortunate enough to get a major cable network interested in it, and it's been on the air since 1995, and still on the air, and a couple of more niche cable channels today and on streaming. And that was an incredible experience to do that and build a company from scratch. So I have a heavy entrepreneurial background also. And then, years later, when I decided to make a change for travel reasons, I was traveling all over the country and sometimes the world, and wanted to kind of relocate myself, or not relocate, but stay in the Evansville area more. I decided to apply for a position, president of WNIN in Evansville, and Jim did a good job of summarizing that. One of the great things that I was able to work on with the board and a bunch of great individuals who helped us fund this, but we were able to move the station from an old mansion actually to a great spot in downtown Evansville. And as you can imagine, moving radio and television stations is not easy, but so I really look back at that as a fond experience. And of course, now, being here in Bloomington, I was looking for a new challenge. I've got it. I'm thrilled to be here. And so that just gives you a little more background on why I'm here. Again, I'm going to just cover some stuff most of you are very familiar with, but WTIU obviously is a PBS affiliate, although we have other sub-channels, 5 in total. Predominantly the air signal obviously is around our transmitter site here in Monroe County, but you can see, if you can see the screen, the green area is basically where we've been actually expanding with satellite and broadband coverage now through streaming services and other things. So we continue to grow. On the radio side, again, incredible organization, expanded over the years. But here again, and we were talking about this with a couple of individuals before we started today, but what people may not realize is that the radio station signed on in 1950. So it's one of the older stations. This goes back to the 1920s when a lot of the early adopters to radio, and believe it or not, it was early adopters, if you can believe that, back then, just like there are today. But that's when it started in 1950. So we're very proud to have celebrated 70 years, which is an incredible feat in itself. And of course, you're familiar with the NPR programming, most of you. But we do have HD channel, and we have other transmitters in the area. So we cover a bigger footprint than just the direct Bloomington area. And then, I'm not going to spend a lot of time because you guys are very aware of this, but one of the reasons I'm here, I was attracted by the talented staff and the culture of producing quality programming. And these are just a few of the more recent things that have been going on here. Amen, which is the music of the Black church, has been wildly successful for us. It's a companion program to a national PBS program, but it was produced here with campus help and with community help. And then, the Ernie Pyle Experiment was a radio drama built off of, the life and times of Ernie Pyle. I don't have to explain to you who that is, but that was an incredible production. And then, things like Earth Eats, both as a podcast and in video and audio form. And then, something you guys are familiar with, a lot of our radio music programming, which is incredible, from classical to jazz, but something like Soul Kitchen, which is a little different flavor of music. We're expanding into other areas of music. And of course, what I spoke about earlier, and Perry played a particular role in this, but really expanding our news operation to one of the best in the region, and quite frankly, one of the best in the country, for what it does top to bottom. And we produce a number of newscasts a day. This coverage goes, statewide, out of Bloomington. Indiana News Desk, most of you are familiar with that. And, we cover just a lot of different stories that sometimes don't get the attention that they should, because commercial media, unfortunately, has had to cut back staffs. And we're really starting to fill that role, that vital role of giving information that, 20 or 30 years ago, you could read in your local newspaper, but sometimes, particularly in an area like Bloomington, you're not getting that type of news on a regular basis anymore. So we're able to fill in where some of the news coverage is a little bit lacking. And things like, the homeless issues here in Bloomington. And of course, we spent a lot of time focusing on something that wasn't being focused on even by the national media, was kind of the Trump administration. They were pushing to pull off as many federal executions in Terre Haute before the end of President Trump's term. And then, of course, we continue to win numerous awards on the regional and national level. And again, most of you are familiar with this. One of the areas, though, that like a lot of media organizations that we're seeing a lot of success in is in the streaming world now. And streaming, again, for us, something like YouTube TV, which some of you are familiar with or may have at home. But this is these streaming services are now, basically cable channels that come through over your Wi-Fi into your home, and it kind of acts. It's a linear channel and acts a lot like what you're used to from cable. Well, we've been added to many systems, a lot on Roku at the moment, and that just continues to develop very rapidly. In the last 9 months, our numbers have doubled on the number of people watching on YouTube TV versus over the air or on traditional cable. And then social media, I don't have to mention Facebook much, continues to grow for us too. One question I get a lot, not just here, but all in the public media world, and this is true for most stations, a little bit different here with the university, but how are we funded? Well, this is a bit of a word cloud here, but the vast majority of funding comes from the top 3 sources, the larger fonts that you see there. So membership and major donors play an oversized role, as they should, in how our support comes about. We also rely a lot on corporate support from area corporations and companies. And then, of course, Indiana University kind of fills out that funding for us. And between those 3 sources, that number can fluctuate around, but it can be as much as 80% of our overall funding at times. And then we do get some state and federal dollars, and then we do solicit grants on our own. So that's not everything, but those are all the major sources of funding for us. One thing today that I really wanted to talk about and highlight is how public media is reinventing itself. There's so much technology change that we have to really think about our value proposition with the public. On one end of the spectrum, as you know, you can watch PBS and listen to NPR in other ways besides your local station now, especially their national programming that they're starting to put online in more places. So we're looking for areas, as we always have as public media, to do things that commercial media is not really paying attention to or doesn't think they can turn a profit at. And one of those areas we're really, really excited about is what's going on with educational data casting. And in Indiana, our Indiana public broadcasting stations as a group, what we call IPBS. So we're all individual stations across the state, but we work jointly together. And through that process, WTIU is actually, and I'm going to show you this in a second, is running a pilot project to use data casting to get information and file content like would normally come over the internet to children and parents in homes that don't have reliable broadband service. So, that may seem strange that a lot of homes don't have that, but that's true. There's about somewhere around 30% in certain counties, rural counties in Indiana, don't have reliable broadband service or no broadband service. But the average is around 20% in the state of Indiana, which is an incredible number when you think about it. So data casting is actually using our legacy technology, which is our over-the-air signal, but think of it as a side carrier or a sub carrier that goes out with the signal that you can't see on your television. But if you have a special receiver in your home, you can receive data files just like over the internet that we're sending out constantly through the airwaves. So students are able to receive information, tests, homework assignments, things that they couldn't get before directly into their homes through this data casting. And I'm going to attempt to show you a video here, if I can get this to work right, that kind of explains what we're doing. It's about a 2-minute video.
It's all too easy to take our technologies for granted, things like smartphones and broadband internet, but access to quality broadband coverage is an issue nationwide, as well as here in Indiana. And because of the COVID-19 pandemic, closing the gap is more crucial than ever, with hundreds of thousands of students learning from home, but unable to use online learning tools. Fortunately, there are other ways to send content to those students, including something a little unexpected, taking legacy technologies and adding some innovation. See, part of a TV broadcast signal can be used for sending encrypted data. This is known as datacasting. It's often used by public safety personnel to get important information when radio and cellular systems get overloaded. All kinds of files can be transmitted this way: images, videos, HTML files. So why can't we use datacasting to send educational content to students without internet access? Turns out we can. As part of a new pilot program, IPBS member stations are partnering with school districts to provide students with a computer, antenna, and receiver. When these are connected, the student will receive instructional units built from a library of educational content, videos, and lessons that you might have seen before on these websites. But in this case, no internet is required. The content is viewed through an internet browser, and it simulates the browsing experience. It's also secure, since the data is private and the content is completely controlled by the sender. Think of it as a huge multimedia library with presentations curated by teachers to meet individual student needs. As the program continues to grow, teachers will add their own content, for example, recorded video messages for their classes, and will be exploring strategies to allow a return path for student assignments. The potential is enormous. Datacasting can't take the place of broadband internet, but that's okay. It's not meant to. It just provides an equitable solution using established technology and infrastructure in a time of great need. The best part is, we can start right now to shine a beacon into the home of every Indiana child, because there's no time to lose. We hope you'll join us.
So basically, this is really, really exciting stuff. I'm going to go to the next screen here, but so what happened here locally is that we were part of this project across the state, but we were the first station in Indiana to actually find a partner in our broadcast area, a school district that needed help and came to us and asked for help. And that was Jennings County, which is about 45 miles to the east of here, basically. Kind of on the edge of our signal, which was a little bit of a challenge. But anyway, they came to us and said, we need help. We can't reach about 30% of our school population, and they're struggling at home. And so they were very innovative. The superintendent there really started thinking out of the box. We had just started this program, had actually just started to approach some school systems. They were a perfect match for us to test the technology. And the really cool thing is that we believe, we're not 100% sure, but we believe we're the first ones, or they are the first ones with our partnership, to actually have a teacher communicate by sending homework and tests and those type of files to actual students, about 200 of them right now in their county. They're going to expand that to 1,200 in the next 6 weeks. So to think that WTIU, IPBS, the Indiana consortium here of public media stations, we're the first ones to really make it work. There's a lot of other states that are working on it. They're starting to do the same thing. There's a lot of stations that are right behind us. But this is happening right here in our area. And this will be replicated across the country, not just for pandemic help, but the schools are already figuring out that, there's times when there's snow days, there's other reasons for the schools to be closed. There's sometimes it's flu season. So they're really looking for a way to communicate with these students at home that don't have broadband technology. This does not replace a broadband, as it was mentioned in the piece. This is just supplementary. And the hope is that 5 years down the road, we won't need to use it for educational or for education anymore. The other thing we use this for is basically, I'm going to jump back out here and quit sharing here. Basically, we can use it for other uses. Data casting is also used and was used before the pandemic more for public safety. So think in terms of if there's a huge event happening where the phone lines get jammed, the mobile phone lines get jammed, which tends to happen when there's a crisis. We can actually send data to first responders in the field. And like the blueprints of a school building where there's an active shooter or something, where they can actually be in the building and we can send them data and we can show them cameras from the school live where they can locate the shooter more quickly. So it's a really exciting technology. It can be used for agriculture and all of this stuff. What we're doing right now, though, is really helping the educators across Indiana. And we're one of about 5 or 6 states right now that are pretty advanced in this. South Carolina, Pennsylvania, there are others that have really made a commitment to educational data casting. But I just want to let you know that we're really thrilled that WTIU is at the forefront of helping educate students in a new way. So that's pretty exciting stuff. The other thing I just mentioned is that, like I said, I've been here about 4 months. Really looking forward to it. I have to admit, the onboarding process here has been really strange. I showed up in December. Of course, the students weren't here. Most of the, as Alon knows, that most people were not on campus. But I was, and walking around campus in midwinter with 300 giant limestone buildings around with, there might have been 300 people on campus, I'm not sure. I felt like I was in some kind of horror film there for a minute when I first joined. I was like, okay, what universe am I in now? But it's been really hard to get to know the staff. Most of them I have not met in person. I've not met Jim in person. Normally Jim and I would have had coffee or done something long before this. So I'm looking forward to the time when, things return to the new normal, which will never be exactly the normal, I'm sure. But that's, part of the process. But I'm happy to be here. We are, just so you know, we are going to be looking at, strategic planning. We're doing some reorganization of our org chart right now, just realigning a few things. But we have a really talented staff here, as Phil knows from his time here. And I'm just anxious to do even more programming, because our reason to really exist, it's always been true, but it's going to be even more in the future when you think about it. If you can get the national programming in other ways, we really have to continue to do a great job of providing content for our area that you can't get through the national sources. And that includes news. So with that, I'm going to stop. I think we're about quarter till, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
I'd be curious to know, NPR is having more and more podcasts, and more people are listening to them and not listening to public radio, including WFIU. How does that affect your funding and contributions?
Yeah, that's a very good question. There's several trends going on at once that are kind of converging, and you mentioned one of them right there. People, you only have so much time to listen during the day or watch. So we're competing in some ways for that time with everyone. So that's very true. And the podcasting and the stuff that NPR is doing on the side, does concern us. But the other interesting part of this that is helping us at the moment is that, quite frankly, people still rely on us for local information. So you can listen to NPR without the Bloomington aspect of it, but you're really not getting the whole enchilada, so to speak. And so right now we're thankful that we have a lot of listeners, if you're just talking about radio for a second, who really depend on us to give other information, including news. So to answer your question, radio listenership is kind of plateaued. We just saw some numbers for us here, and they have actually held up pretty well. We were more concerned they might drop off through the pandemic because people weren't listening as much in their car, but they've stabilized. And back to the funding aspect of your question, what we're finding is we're not necessarily growing in membership, which is long-term a concern of ours, say 5 or 10 years down the road. But the people that are giving to the station are actually saying to us, we believe in the station even more, and we're willing to up our investment in the station. So we're actually seeing more dollars, believe it or not, from fewer donors. And I want to say we don't have, the donors are dropping off like flies or anything, but you know, if we see a 2% dip in donors, number of donors, we're seeing like a 5 or 10% increase in donation total revenue. So, and that's true on the television side, which is a little different animal, so to speak, on why people give to television versus radio. But it's a good question, Owen. Part of our strat planning will be to continue to look into that.
Good question. How widespread is broadband in Monroe County and in the neighboring counties?
Broadband, what I'm hearing right now for Monroe County itself is that it's about 20% that don't have regular access to it. So think of it as 75 to 80% that do, if you want to look at it that way. Like I said, the state average runs in the low 20s that don't have it. In Jennings County, the more rural counties that don't have, like Indiana University and the population here, tend to run closer to 30%. And you know, I'm as guilty as many of us here. I take for granted that I can download something or listen to something or watch something, and it's just not the case for a significant amount of the population.
I have a couple of questions. One is, how do you know the size of your radio audience? And the other is, when will we see season 2 of All Creatures Great and Small?
Well, those are good questions. So I'll take the second one first. That's a good question. What we're hearing is that you know, fingers crossed that you know, they could be this winter. So you've got a ways to go yet for number 2. Yeah, fingers crossed. But it did well. It was, I mean, people expected it to do well as a series, and it did. So I would expect, you know, I think we're going to see more there. The problem is we have to negotiate, you know, PBS does not produce this programming. They have to negotiate the rights to it. So, and then, I'm sorry, what was your other question?
How do you know the size of your radio audience?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so we subscribe to a ratings service, and it used to be called Arbitron, but I won't get into the names of all those things. They've been changing, merging, whatever. But basically, we get what's called limited ratings, which means we don't get as detailed information because we don't pay for it. Ratings are expensive. The services that provide ratings information, you know, they go out and survey listeners. Used to be old time diaries and stuff. If you guys remember, if you ever had one of those, where they asked you to, for a month, write down everything that you watched or listened to or whatever. They have other ways of doing that now, but essentially that's how we get that information. But it's not highly detailed, broken down into individual programs and things. We just know kind of cues for the day and day parts and stuff like that.
Do the radio and TV sections rise and fall together? There are different fundraising sessions, and does it matter whether one gets a whole lot more than the other?
It does matter. You know, we do run separate books. I mean, they're set up as separate operations, and most of you probably know that the way we handle that. So it is important that each of them bring in the revenue that we need to operate that platform, so to speak. They are different. I'm learning the differences here. I'm more familiar with the differences of the stations in Evansville, but they're similar. One thing that, you know, I think is obvious to those of you who have been around public media here is that, and there's not necessarily a right or wrong, but the radio audience really gives for mission. You know, they're really interested in what we're doing, whether it's news or local content or the programming that we bring locally, that we do locally or that we bring in from NPR, and they're willing to fund that. You know, they really make a connection to, I'm giving a $200 check and it's going to go help to bring NPR into the area or whatever. Or I love this local program. I love their classical music. I'm going to support that. Television over the years has grown to be a little more transactional. And what I mean by that is, and it's something we need to work on, is a lot of times people don't donate to the television side unless they want the CD or the DVD of the program, right? We've kind of trained people to, yeah, oh, I want tickets to something or whatever. And so, you know, what we need to do is get back to the mission of why public television exists in the first place. I mean, it's our own fault in some respects, but there is a difference in the reason that the average giver gives on both platforms.
I have a question.
Could I follow up on that question?
Sure.
What is the age differential for radio and TV viewers and givers?
Right. So I have not seen the latest information, but as of about a year and a half ago, the latest thing I saw, and I'll just give you, this is just very general, is the average PBS viewer is in their early 60s. Okay? Right. And female, skews female about 5 or 10% more than male. And then on the radio side, it's more evenly split, male to female, in some cases more male at certain stations, but it's about 10 years younger on average, 8 to 10 years younger. So you're looking at, you know, 54, 55 on radio.
So can I ask, what is what is the relationship with programming from Indiana University? So not only performances, but educational programs or possibly classes.
You mean what influence do they have on us?
No, I mean, what's the extent to which you are involved?
Oh, involved. Okay. So yeah, so I'm still learning this, and this is another reason that I'm excited to be here. Is there, you know, I don't have to tell you guys this. There's a tremendous amount of talent on the campus here, across all the schools and all the organizations. And you know, as Phil knows from his days here, the stations have always done a good job of looking for opportunities to present that talent to the public media world. And so we have obviously a very close relationship with the Jacobs School of Music and on down the line. And Alon knows a lot of this. But, you know, what I want to do is strengthen that. You know, I think there's even more that can be done by partnering and bringing not just our area, but I think there's more content, and we do syndicate things once in a while from here. Syndicating meaning getting them out to the national audience through other stations. I think we can do more of that in the future, but no, Indiana University does support us directly with some funding, and we do a lot behind the scenes. Just from a client standpoint, you know, we run all the scoreboards in Assembly Hall and blah, 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 and football. And so we do a lot of paid work for the university too, but they're really good about letting us come up with content ideas and working with the other schools.
I should mention, by the way, that the Ernie Pyle experiment has been renewed for a second season. I had invited Mike Brainerd to come to today's meeting, but he wasn't able to make it.
Hey, Owen, thanks for pointing that out. That's good call. Yeah, and I was amazed at the production of that. I mean, you know, that some work, as you know, went into that. That wasn't just something that just you picked off a tree, you know. And it's professional. That's very professional. And that's a good example of what I'd like to do more of in the future.
How dependent are you on the companies that provide the television, like Comcast? And what's your relationship with that, and how does that vary?
Like the cable networks, you mean?
Yeah, the cable networks. Yeah.
Well, it's. I think Phil, you were dealing with this when you were here, but it's harder and harder to get a hold of them. You know, it used to be a good relationship years ago because they were locally owned. You know, when cable first started, especially in the rural areas, the companies, you knew the people that ran the cable company, right? Now it's all owned by conglomerates, and so we struggle sometimes. They will want to move us around on a cable company, or quite frankly, try to get us off of a cable when they're not supposed to. And we struggled to get a hold of them because you're calling, sometimes it seems like you're calling Brazil or somewhere, you know, to get someone on the phone and they don't understand what you're talking about or why we're calling to say our signal's not available in such and such county or whatever. So it's a real challenge moving forward.
What are the advantages of keeping the funding separate between radio and television?
Well, that's a very good question. So we run them separately for a number of reasons. One is that like I mentioned, we do get a smaller CPB grant, Corporation for Public Broadcasting. They require us to run separate books. Okay, so every station in the country, whether you outwardly see it in the public or not, they are actually running separate books. So every dollar that comes in, we have to code it. A lot of times, obviously, the donor tells us what they want done with it, right? But if that dollar comes in and they say, do whatever with it, then we can assign it wherever we want. But we have to assign it to one side or the other, or divide it up. Like if you give us $200, you could say, give 100 to radio, give 100 to, you know, whatever. But that's the main reason that we keep separate books themselves.
I'd like to ask about syndication of some of your radio programs. Like Harmonia originated, but this might not be fair because you are new, but Harmonia originated in Bloomington. But like things like Soul Kitchen, I understand there's an effort to make that have a wider audience beyond this station. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so the good news is, as you stated, we're producing content that's worthy of being heard other places. Okay, quite frankly, you know, every station in the country is doing local content, and some of it's not worth, you know, trading with other stations or making available to other stations. But we have a lot of content that is, and over the years, the station has a history of doing that. But we got this question in another discussion we were having the other day, but, you know, we don't actually, right now, it's very difficult. We don't actually make revenue from syndication. Okay, number one. Okay, now that doesn't mean we can't, but it's a lot of work to build a program to a level where there's enough listenership that you can go find support, either corporate underwriting dollars or production support dollars. You know, when you hear these programs nationally syndicated, you hear them say support comes from X, Y, and Z or whatever. You know, you have to have a staff that goes out and looks for those funding opportunities. But that's part of the reason that I'm here, is that I really want to use my background because I spent a lot of time pitching programs and selling programs around the country on the commercial side. What I have to do is adapt that to the non-commercial or nonprofit side. And it's tougher because you have to build an audience, and then you have to find the donors that are willing to pay for what is a lot of times a smaller audience, but it's very niche. You know, it's very important to those of you who listen to our radio station know that if we move something around on you, boy, whoo, man, we hear about it, don't we? Because people are really passionate about their particular programs. And that's a good thing. We just have to figure out a way to monetize that going forward.
Thank you, Brad, so much for sharing with us today. Do you have a few minutes to stay after for additional questions?
I do.
Okay, great. In honor of your presentation, today we'll be making a donation to Beacon. And so thank you so much for sharing with us. Sally, would you please tell us about next week's program?
Yes, next week on March 23rd, our first program of spring, we'll be having a club forum. Yay! We're going to be able to talk to each other, interactive, we'll be lively, and we'll have fun.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, let's have the 4-way test graphic to say together and close out our meeting. Of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? All right, do we have any additional questions?
I do have